Welcome, listeners, to the podcast of the Living Zombie. I am your ghoul host. Is that a thing I can say? I'm your ghoul host, Kyle.
Know what the zombie equivalent of like a thrall is.
No, I mean you'd also be the ghoul host because that's
it.
the pun about this. It's instead of saying co-host, we're saying ghoul host. So you're also the ghoul host.
Is that a pun?
It is.
Anything's really a pun if you believe in yourself.
And I do. Yeah. I believe in you. Yeah, this is
Somebody's got it.
yeah. So yeah, this week we're doing one of our usual post Halloween zombie episodes because I can never get these out on time and it's just been whatever. But
Yeah.
pleasantly I did kind of enjoy this movie, which is kind of I wasn't expecting to. I thought this one was going to be a chore, and it didn't end up being one.
It was weird.
Yeah, it is
a weird fucking movie.
Yeah,
the power of I guess like horny teenagers like seem to fucking prevail throughout this whole entire.
So
yeah,
here's kind of the thing I found endearing about it. There's a bit like after I get through like the first couple scenes, there's a okay, so in the original Night of the Living Dead, there's a scene where the survivors are in a house and they need to fill up a truck from the fuel tank they have on the farm they're stranded on. So they're gonna like, okay, we need to go out there and just go really quick and fuel up this truck so we can like get out of here. And they're like, oh yeah, no, I'll yeah, and so they go to do that. A couple of the survivors go to do that. And I described that, and Curtis was on that episode, but I described that as like what happened there is like the furthest south I've ever seen anything go for no reason, without it like being like a almost absurdity, because they end up getting like getting caught by the zombies. And then they like spray some gasoline on the engine block and like the entire vehicle catches on fire, killing the two survivors that were going to go start that truck. And at that time I thought, oh, this is the furthest south I've ever seen anything go in a movie. This movie has supplanted that. Because just like amazing. And that's at that moment I was like, okay, this is the most sequel to Night of the Living Dead I've ever seen. Because at that point, it's just like, I just knew there is something about this movie that just harkens me back to the original Night of the Living Dead. And there's no reason for it. This isn't even like, because Return of the Living Dead is a series which is based off a novel written by John Russo, who co-wrote the original Night of the Living Dead. The first Return of the Living Dead movie involves him, where he's one of the story by guys. He's not even the screenplay writer, but he's like totally absent from the series, starting with the second one. And this film has even less DNA with the original Return of the Living Dead, because like no one's returned. This is.
Joe Russo is like from the Anthony Russo fame, correct?
I don't know if they're related. John Russo is the guy's name.
Or am I? Oh, John Russo. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, John A. Russo.
I was thinking Joe Russo, Anthony and Joe Russo.
Oh no. This is
who did like Avengers and like fucking
no,
a bunch of other shit.
No, I don't think they're related at all. Yeah, I mean, you'd think the Wikipedia would mention that, but yeah. But yeah, no, they're not related. But yeah, that movie is made in 1985. I forget when Return of the Living Dead 2 was made, but it's sort of like a very much the most direct sequel this little subgenre has actually done. where like those two films are like intricately connected. And this film does fit in the continuity of Return of the Living Dead. And like that one is necessarily like guaranteed, but it is very much a very different film. It fits in the continuity, but it's for starters, it's not a horror comedy like the first two Return of the Living Deads. So this is actually a horror romance, is how it's pinned. So there's no DNA. Like George A. Romero is not here. John A. Russo is not here. None of these actors have appeared in any of the previous films, or like there's no directorial commentary. It's just like there's some rights holder where like Trimark has some intellectual permission to make another one of these. But
do you think that ultimately diminishing returns on the idea of like zombies in general, or because this one takes a really weird turn canonically, in my opinion, in the zombie lore. It's not necessarily like a zombie outbreak happening. It's like mostly contained military working alongside like zombies to better enhance zombies, I guess, for bioweapon.
Yeah, and this, I'd say this is consistent with the Return of the Living Dead lore. Because even like at the very beginning, like the zombies seem to function all the same way too, with like perhaps a continuity error in that you're not supposed to burn the Return of the Living Dead zombies because that spreads the virus. But that also could just be like, and we see several points in this movie where like they're burning zombie parts. Zombies and zombie parts.
Yeah.
But that could just be like they've solved the problem somehow. They're mixing the they're like using a special kind of like fire, or like they're doing some counteracting where they can like nullify the zombifying fumes that infect the rain, that can get into the clouds like you see in the Return of the Living Dead. So this does like, and that's the biggest like continuity error I'd say between any of these films, between this and the previous two films. But this, I think it strictly works. I've given my little okay. I think those are like some pretty reasonable explanations for how this works together. Like, yeah, maybe the zombies sort of function a little differently, but I think they give enough lip service in this movie to say like, okay, this squares with what happens in those two movies. Yeah, and they were under no obligation to do that, really. I think the only notes that the director, Brian Yunza, was given was that he needed to include the triene gas, which appears in the previous movies, in order to justify using the Return of the Living Dead title. And he went above and beyond because this fits pretty well into the franchise without really retconning anything. But yeah, there's just something about this movie that does sort of fit into the franchise. And I think there's like some spiritual continuity between this and Night of the Living Dead, which I kind of appreciated. Like I felt like I got some of the things that I liked in that movie in this movie, which I think some people are going to scoff at. Honestly, I think that's because people don't give this movie a lot of credit. But I honestly don't. I think part of that is because this is genuinely, I think, a cult, like a movie that could have a cult following. It did not get a wide theatrical release, as far as I can tell. 9 theaters.
9 theaters?
9, like single digit.
19. Oh,
yeah, single digit.
Yeah.
The number 9. It only in those 9 theaters amount to like $54,000. In like box office on a $2 million budget, which granted is lower than the Return of the Living Dead seems to have had a $3 to $4 million budget. With inflation, I feel safe saying this has half the budget of that. But yeah, I feel like this, like I feel like genuinely this movie kind of gets the shaft because this is actually notably, I think this is, I rented the other two movies, but this one's on streaming services for whatever reason. This one's really easy to find on streaming services. Actually, I think Return of the Living Dead is on streaming. It was on Shudder when I had it, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
But this one seems to like, I think there's maybe some rights differences there. Like different people are getting paid for this movie, royalties wise. But this movie does seem to get shunted. Like this frequently appears on its own on streaming services without the previous two. And there's probably reasons for that, but and I also kind of understand why this didn't get a theatrical run. They actually had to cut like about a minute of footage from this to get an R rating. And I can't see showing this in theaters, at least not in 1993. It maybe like you could maybe have fit this in the 80s, but it's I think by the 90s they're starting to crack down on some of the stuff that this film does. And it is there is a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? The creature and like the main character in this scene. You'll notice like when you see the movie poster for this, the main monster on this which is the character's Julie Walker, who gets turned into this in the movie. She is wearing way more clothes in the poster than she does in the movie when she is in this form. And it is I absolutely understand why like you saw the cuts of this movie and like someone went like, oh yeah, we can't put this in like a wide theatrical release. And this movie is also dark as shit, honestly. Like I'm here for it in a way that it really wasn't for the original Return of the Living Dead. Like I complained that the original Return of the Living Dead was a bit too black a comedy for me, whereas this is like probably equally as black, but I kind of like this one. I don't know if it's just because it's taking itself seriously, I'm more willing to accept the darkness of it. But yeah, this is a really gothy movie. Yeah, so let's get into this because I need to explain, because I need to get in some examples in order to explain better why I kind of like this movie. Which, yeah, I actually really like this movie, especially if I get around to making the tier list of all the movies I cover in this little sub series. This is easy top 5 for me. Like this is I'm definitely putting this above Zombie 2. It's probably not going above Dawn of the Dead, but yeah, I think this is definitely one of my favorite ones we've watched, or I've watched for this. But yeah, into the plot of the movie. We open our film in a military base. We see a corpse is being wheeled into a experimentation area. We get some exposition from some of our main characters. Colonel John Reynolds, played by Kent McCord. We see James T. Callahan as Colonel Peck, and Sarah Douglas as Colonel Sinclair. And these are like the big military guys in charge of this military experimentation facility they're at. And they explain that this is where they're experimenting on like the zombie stuff. And that they give some exposition that apparently this is a facility where they're trying to make bioweapons out of the zombies from Return of the Living Dead, which is a yeah, that's if you've seen the first two movies, like especially if the first movie, like those, that is not a joke. These things are fucking the strongest zombies of perhaps any film I've ever seen, because they are just immortal in this. Colonel Peck points out that like after that Colonel Sinclair argues, is like complaining that like, oh, this place doesn't have great security, and Colonel Peck's just like, oh well, we're not getting the funding that we need to be keeping this place. We don't even have, this isn't even a permanent facility. Because the people in Washington, because this is the one military project that isn't getting the proper amount of funding for some reason. It's really, this is always a weird thing. We're like, oh yeah, oh no, the super dangerous thing isn't getting proper funding, when it seems like you can get like the military wasting tons of money, except when it's inconvenient for the movies. But yeah, they're wheeling in there. It's also explained that Colonel Reynolds and Colonel Sinclair have been like sort of competing for who's in charge of this project, of like how to go about controlling these zombies. Colonel Sinclair's idea was to like put all the zombies in exosuits. Colonel Reynolds, however, has come up with an idea where like they can use a special gadget to turn zombies on and off, which can be fired at a zombie from a distance. And that is what they're here to test.
Don't know why they wouldn't sit there and combine the two technologies and be like, oh, okay, now we've got an exosuit that we can just turn the zombies on and off.
I mean, that could have happened.
Yeah, I don't know why you need to discredit one and discredit one to make the other one work, but like that just makes way more sense to me.
Some of this is just like probably military arguing, honestly. But I mean, that could have been a inevitability. Like that could have been like a possible.
Because I mean, neither of them work in the film.
Yeah, for like different reasons.
Like I think the exoskeleton works a little bit more, but like or at least from what we see, the exoskeleton seems to work. Not really, quite frankly, as well as the guns, but like the guns have their own issues at that point in time. Like you got to wait like 10 seconds to reload this thing, and you're literally sitting there like praying that the zombies don't close the distance before you actually get your shot off. Really hope that you don't fucking miss.
Yeah, it's like a big air rifle. So it's like powered by like compressed air. It's a big bulky thing. And yeah, of course it's needs to be fired at the head. And it's super clunky. And there's a lot of reasons this may not work. But this could be somewhat explained by just, at the time this seemed a lot more like plausible than it ended up being. In the meantime, another bit of exposition we get is that Colonel Reynolds' ID card is missing. So Colonel Peck needs to like wave them in. He's like, oh yeah, I just can't find that thing. And then we cut to our main characters of the film, J. Trevor Emmons Kurt Reynolds, the son of Colonel Reynolds, and his girlfriend Julie Walker, played by Mindy Clark, who weirdly I think is maybe one of the biggest actors in this film.
I think this person goes on to become like a pretty big name in like soaps, but like nobody has like a very decent like filmography after this. Like
everyone I'm seeing has like a bunch of TV appearances and nothing that really matches up this.
And I think like this guy's main character, not the female, but the guy, I think he goes on to do like 10 more years of TV acting, and then he retired.
Yeah,
basically, like I haven't seen him in anything since then.
Yeah, Melinda Clark is like, she's one of the main she's like a long running character on the original CSI. Lady Heather's the character. She's also like a major character in Nikita and the OC, or she will go on to be in those. She's in Days of Our Lives for a little bit because her dad's like one of the guys from Days of Our Lives. Like
and she was in Gotham.
Yeah,
in the third season of Gotham for like 3 episodes. So that was interesting to see. Oh, this is where I would recognize her from, essentially, because I actually watched.
But yeah, her dad is like John Clark, who's like he was like the guy. He was like in one of the big guys in Days of Our Lives for like 40 years. The guy was in it, like from the beginning up until 2004. I've almost certainly seen this guy on television at some point. I'm just curious what was. Yeah, I don't know who the character is.
Also, now that we're getting more into the zombie stuff, did they just dub over like the
Maybe
zombie scenes with like
I don't
another
know.
voiceover? Let's be honest, the zombies in this movie sound stupid as
Maybe.
fuck in the beginning of this movie. So I don't know if they're just like, we need like generic zombie noises, and somebody like came in and
Yeah, the
voiced it.
elephant in the room of kind of the zombies in this film are like the zombie makeup is like at best pretty good, whereas like Return of the Living Dead is known for like having some of the best zombie makeup ever made. Whereas like the zombie stuff in this is just like pretty good. There's some cool scenes. None of it's quite like nothing reaches the peaks of like the tar zombie from the original Return of the Living Dead, which is like one of the iconic things. But yeah, the zombie. But yeah, there's a lot there. I will give it this movie this. There are a lot of the zombies are quite impressive. It's just that like none of them are like the best, which is kind of what it's up against, which is the sad thing. I think if this didn't have the title, it maybe be looked on a little fonder, maybe. But so yeah. Anyway, Kurt has stolen his dad's ID badge because his girlfriend wants to sneak into the military base and like see what's going on there and maybe expose if they're like work like doing things to animals or whatever. So yeah, they've just decided this is a thing they're doing, and they're going to show up there at 6 o'clock to observe this like tests that the military is going to be doing that his dad that Colonel Reynolds was talking about that that he was overseeing. So they go over there. They just kind of let him into the base, although he doesn't have like an ID card without which they don't know he has. But he uses the ID card to get into like the secreter parts of the base. And eventually, him and Julie are able to find a window into the test area, and they observe it. And they observe that a few military personnel put on some hazmat garb and activate some of the 2,4,5 trioxin gas to reanimate the zombie. To reanimate a living corpse that they have brought into this room and like bound pretty thoroughly. So they activate some of the gas to bring the thing back to life. And after that, Julie and Kurt piss off because they're all like, "Oh, that's really crazy that happened." So they leave, and they don't see the next part of the scene, which is that when they bring out the little air rifle and fire the doohickey into the zombie's head, which is into a specially marked spot, and they're able to turn the zombie off essentially. Okay, handy enough. So they turn him off. They put him onto a gurney, back onto the gurney, so that they can keep an eye on this later. But as they're like celebrating success, the off button wears off, and the zombie comes back, and it bites one of the doctor's fingers off. One of these doctors, by the way, is played by Anthony Hickox, Anthony Hickox, who directs Hellraiser 3, also Waxwork. Um, So yeah, that's an Easter egg. Yeah, these guys all know each other. But yeah, so he gets bitten, and they have to like struggle a bunch to try to get it back to get the zombies tied down. Eventually, one of the doctors gets the idea to shoot the zombie again with the rifle again to try to get it to turn off for another couple seconds. But in the meantime, while they're doing that, the zombie has tried to eat the doctor whose hand he's bitten off. They miss a shot with this air rifle and kill that doctor. And eventually they have to reload it, and they manage to get the second shot. And this just shows further south from here. One of the other as they're tying this guy down, the doctor who has been killed comes back to life. He ends up biting a guy, and only one of these doctors ends up making it out. Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's pretty bad. This ultimately, as we find out a little bit later, costs Colonel Reynolds his job, and he is going to get transferred to Oklahoma, and that Colonel Sinclair is going to get a chance to do things her way. So yeah, so Julie and Kurt wind up back at Kurt's house, and they have sex. And yeah, we just straight up see, and we get to. If you ever wanted to see Mindy Clark naked, this is your movie. At least at this point, we'll say that much. It's a little weird because I think these characters, I think they're maybe barely 18, but in universe, I think these guys are like late teens at worst. But I don't think these characters are very old or of age that we should be seeing some of this. But anyway, yeah, this movie's very 80s in that like a lot of stuff that's being let through that maybe wouldn't have been in like other contemporary films of the time, because we're starting to get stingier with this sort of thing in the 1990s for a number of reasons. But yeah, there's a reason this film never quite made it to theater. But this isn't really the egregious version of anything. Yeah, they're having sex, and then eventually Colonel Reynolds comes home and just calls out to everyone, and the teens frantically get dressed. Colonel Reynolds calls out to Kurt, and he's like, "Kurt, I need to talk to you." And he walks in just as like the two are just like almost dressed, and Colonel Reynolds doesn't seem to react to this very strongly.
Wasn't even fucking dressed. Like she threw on like a leather jacket over like her naked boobs. So it's like clearly he knew something was going on.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to make like a big deal out of it, mostly because he's as we're going to bring up. Yeah, and the other thing about these movies, the teens in this are kind of aesthetically the similar as like the teens from Return of the Living Dead, where those kids were all punks. These kids are very like alt rock dressed, and yeah, Kurt and Colonel Reynolds and the Colonel have a conversation, and Colonel John is just like, "I'm sorry, I'm getting reassigned. We got to go to Oklahoma City," and he's just like, "Oh, what? But we just got here. We've only been here like a few months. I've had friends now." And he's like, "Well, there's nothing we can do. This is just what's going to happen." And Kurt's just like, "No, I'm not going." And he's like, and John reacts kind of angrily, despite the fact that like I think these characters are pretty like close to 18. Like it's maybe not out of the pale for like Kurt to like get through his grade 12 or whatever. I think that's probably a possible thing. It's not convenient, but he is. I think this character, at least, maybe I'm just projecting because this makes this less gross to be putting on screen. But I think this character is like almost of age. He is almost a high, like he is probably almost old enough to be on his own technically. But John, the Colonel never really acknowledges the idea that like Kurt can like go away, and the Colonel is like, no, dude, no, you got to come with me. Like I like, you don't have a thing. I've like haven't said anything about this rock and roll stuff you're wanting to do because I knew you'd grow out of it. And like they have a bit of a fight. Both of them have a little bit of a point, but there's like an undercurrent to all this where like I don't think John like the Colonel wants his son to be away from him. And as we're steadily thing, the Colonel says, "You never acted like this when your mom was around," and that seems to devolve the situation further. And Kurt and Julie end up driving off on his motorcycle into the night to go run away. But yeah, there's this undercurrent with these characters of like they're like John doesn't want to let go because he's lost. I think on some level he's lost his wife and he doesn't want his son to leave, and is maybe reacting a bit unreasonably to this, assuming at least the character is actually the character of Kurt is like in his late 17, like in the latter part of his like senior year of high school or something, or like that he's or perhaps even like a college age adult. That's also possible. But yeah, you get the sense that like maybe the Colonel doesn't want to let go, and they're both having some difficulty processing the death of their the mom and the Colonel's wife and Kurt's mom. But yeah, and yeah, this is kind of interesting. There's like a character arc going on here, and Kurt is very much, for like his flaws, is like very much devoted to Julie. He doesn't want to leave her, and like his first thought when this happens is like him and Julie are running off together. Because that's how they're going to do this. They're talking about going to Seattle, which I guess is the place where you go when you're an angsty teen, I assume. Maybe that's what Americans do. I don't know. Is that what you do in the Northeast? I don't know. Or Northwest. Who knows? I'm not from that region. Anyway. So yeah, this ends up being a big argument. Kurt is never able to put away that key cards, which he still has on him. And they end up driving off into the night. And Julie is very turned on by all this and decides that she's going to try to do some squeezing in Kurt's crotch area. And this causes him to eventually swerve away from a oncoming vehicle, crash into a barricade, causing a motorcycle accident in which Julie is flung from the vehicle and hits and goes in straight into a power pole. Kurt survives this because he's still on the bike and is able to like stabilize himself. And this motorcycle, I should point out, is not like big enough for two people by any stretch of the imagination. It's very much like it's not like a big Harley thing. It's like a small Indian motorcycle type thing. So yeah, this is pretty devastating. So he's and he gets an idea, a terrible, awful idea. And this is where the movie beats Night of the Living Dead for thing that's gone the most south I've ever seen in the movie. Because he gets the idea of, oh, well, I saw that gas at my dad's work that brings people back to life. I'm going to go over there and use that on my dead girlfriend, thereby dooming dozens of people to death.
Like the power of horny teenagers, like definitely prevail in this movie.
Because, oh yeah, like, no, and especially given that, like, and I gotta point out at the end of Return of the Living Dead, spoilers, they nuke an entire town. So this is a downright apocalyptic decision. Yeah, like this could have led to thousands dead, easy, and it doesn't. Because that's not really the focus of the film, and they got a lot more of a the military's gotten a lot better at like capturing these things. I will point out, I guess that's another continuity thing we need to mention, that they don't we don't see them using high amounts of electricity to kill the zombies like we see in Return of the Living Dead Part 2. But that can be explained by just like, it's hard to get a shit ton of electricity. Like a taser's not going to do it. You got to hook up like the power line to something or something. So yeah, that's I don't know if that really qualifies as a plot hole or anything, because maybe the military has a secret electricity weapon or whatever, but that's a bit more sci-fi than they wanted to go. Anyway, he's able to do this. Yeah, Kurt pulls this off. He uses his card, drags Julie's body into the test area, past several military personnel who don't notice that she's dead, and he manages to set up to get her into the test chamber, and fills the chamber with some of the trioxin gas. But instead of like giving like a careful expulsion of the gas like they had done in the original scene, he just accidentally like pops open the lid, which it's actually weird that he doesn't get infected throughout the course of this movie. But I guess that's just speaks to the quality of, he's wearing safety gear, which is why you always wear proper workplace protection, personal protective equipment, kids, because it will prevent you from becoming a zombie and getting caught up into the inevitable deaths involved with a secret military bioweapons project. This is your lesson, kids. So this works. She comes back after a while, and she maintains a lot of her sanity, which checks with how some of the zombies in the last two worked. They don't always function like this, but she is freshly dead. But yeah, it's maybe not exactly how it's been seen to work in the earlier films, but it does go a certain way. And the reason we're like getting, also I will point out, the reason we're getting Julie turning into a zombie in this is because Brian Yuzna's very recent last film that he had done before this was Bride of the Reanimator, in which there was the Bride of the Reanimator, which he was apparently quite disappointed with how little he got to use. So in this film, he very much comes into it was just like, I want to use a female monster. And he does. Yeah, he very thoroughly uses this character. This film doesn't pass the Bechdel test because none of the female characters talk to each other. But he does make an effort to use this female character and give her a lot of meat to work with. And I mean the acting meat, not in like a gross way. I guess in a zombie way, but not like, yeah. Anyway, that was a joke that got away from me. I didn't realize I made a pun. But yeah, she does. It's at this point, like if you thought Julie was sort of annoying earlier in the film, that sort of ends here because she does a very good job with the rest of this film. And it's, yeah, you can see why she's like career-wise the best actor in this film. And she does a really good job. Is it exploitative? Possibly. Is it like crass? Is it disgusting? Is this plot going to be disgusting to a lot of people? Yeah, but it's consistent and it's not it's got meaning to it and it's all happening for a purpose. Yeah, I feel it does a good job eventually. But yeah. So yeah, they have to escape this little test area because these Trion gas containers are coming from a barrel that includes a zombie in it. So we get our first glimpse of one of the barrel zombies in this movie, and it just isn't on par with the barrel zombies in the previous films. Like even Return of the Living Dead's, it's not even nearly as on par with that. They do. The strength of this movie's zombies isn't so much in like the like skin of anything. It's mostly in the practical effects of it all, because they fight this zombie off And eventually they get this really cool shot of the zombie whose skin is sort of like grit, like melting off its skeleton, and the zombie sort of like rips its skull away. And it's a really good looking shot. It's nothing comparable to the original Return of the Living Dead, but it does have some chops. So this causes a whole thing. Some of the zombie gets loose and ends up killing a soldier. The Julie and Kurt end up driving off on the motorcycle with guns pointing at them. They get an APB put on them immediately because now they have a zombie on the loose. So yeah, Colonel Reynolds gets put in, and he gets brought in to handle all this. Of course, Colonel Sinclair says, "Oh yeah, no, I'm supposed to be in charge of this." And Colonel Peck points out that, like, it says you're in charge as of 9 a.m. So Colonel Reynolds is going to handle this until then. Also, it's his son they're looking for. And it seems like they have an inkling of what happened. Now they've looked over the security cameras and everything. So there's no miscommunication in this movie, which is kind of fresh. When a character acts like inconsistently, it's because they're an asshole, like Colonel Sinclair is going to end up being. Because she's going to make another call to Washington and get herself put in charge of this project a little bit later. But for now, Colonel Reynolds is still the commanding officer in charge of this facility, so he starts trying to rescue his son. They point out that, like, okay, maybe their bond will keep them from getting attacked, at least for a while. But we need to find him before Julie decays too much. So yeah, and this is where we get the bulk of the movie.
I think the evolution process here kind of takes a weird blurring mess, because like a lot of the zombies in the film like turn very quickly, and then Julie is all of a sudden like super slow.
Yeah, there is some inconsistency. I think the people that are exposed to the gas tend to get exposed a lot slower. But then again, the corpse from the beginning got turned pretty quick. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it depends. Yeah, and I think it was maybe a bit inconsistent, some of the earlier ones too. But yeah. So they end up driving into town. Julie complains about a very major hunger. So they have to. So they end up going to a Stop and Shop, and they end up buying a bunch of food. There they find a bunch of Hispanic ruffians. Yeah, this is another point of contention you could say about this movie. They lay on the stereotypes a little thick at points. Actually, a little thick is probably underselling it. It's fairly thick. These are the most. These are very. This does border on caricature-ish. I think everyone does do a good job of it. I think a lot of these characters are rounded in a way that tends to be a little bit much for stereotyping. But it is on the line, definitely. And white guy speaking, so don't take my word for it. I'm not gonna stick up for it, but I do think these characters are sort of rounded, which helps. They get into a conflict with Kurt and Julie when one of them makes a snide comment about the comment to Kurt, just saying like, "Oh, geez, have you not been feeding her?" And because he's all stressed out, he's just like, "Shut up, quit bothering me." And this causes a little bit of a conflict. There ends up being a bit of a scuffle. The clerk of the Stop and Shop is just like, "Hey, take it outside," which doesn't successfully happen. The clerk eventually brings out a pistol and tries to warn everybody outside because one of the hooligans has produced a knife. This does not work out for him because the biggest of the the hooligans. What's his name? Santos, played by Mike Moroff. He ends up getting into a fight with the clerk and grabs the clerk's gun and ends up shooting the clerk, causing a bit of more of a stir. In the scuffle, one of the gangsters, Mogo, I didn't realize that was. I thought they pronounced his name a little differently, but Mogo, played by Fabio Urena, gets bitten by Julie in the scuffle, which is just an idea she has at the time. And so everyone runs off. There has been a alarm triggered at this convenience store, so everyone's running off. Julie and Kurt are able to borrow the clerk's work van. So they end up saying like, "Oh, dude, can you drive me to a hospital?" And he's just like, "Yeah, sure." So they start driving, and then when the police arrive, Ping is the character's name, played by Dana Lee. He ends up just being when Ping sees that the vehicle that the police are starting to arrive, he's like, "Oh wait, stop! Just let the police take me over there." And because Kurt and Julie are wanted by the police, they don't want to stop. So this becomes a thing. Ping during the chase sequence, because they're also responding to a robbery here. They don't know, and they see someone fleeing the scene. So the police start chasing after them. Because Kurt and Julie refuse to stop, Ping opens up the back door to try to wave for help. He is immediately shot by the police. For what? Yeah. So yay, cops! They solve all our problems. So they end up.
Oh, look, minority.
Yeah. No, they're literally. Yeah, literally. Yeah, there's. Yeah, literally, just like, oh, minority, shoot him. Not even particularly the type of minority we stereotype as committing a lot of crimes either. Yeah, so Kurt ends up losing them in the meantime, but he loses track of Julie while this is happening. And Julie has wandered into the back seat and has ate Ping's brain. Or into the back of the van, rather. And has eaten Ping's brain. So, yeah. This is the first point at which, Kurt knew that, something was wrong. But, something being wrong is better than something being dead. So he was sort of overlooking it. But at this point, this is, he's, they get into a bit of an argument, and they're just like, about what to do, and it's an argument about whether or not she's better off dead or whatever. And he has an outburst where he's just like, "Oh, dude, oh no, you're ugly. I don't know what I was thinking." And then so she runs off. He immediately regrets this and has to go chase after her. Julie wanders over to a nearby bridge, and despite Kurt trying to talk her down, Julie jumps. And Kurt has to follow her along, try to find her along the river, which is just rushing pretty bad here too. So God knows where she is. I don't think this dooms everyone to die, because one of the zombies from Return of the Living Dead 2 was also in a river, and it didn't cause some major thing, or at least not something that the military wasn't able to prevent. So he ends up following around, trying to look for her. When he encounters Riverman, played by Basil Wallace, who's also a fun character. He is a homeless man from New Orleans who offers to help look for him. And is just trying to... Mostly what he's doing here is actually just like, "Oh, Kurt, you don't want to go into the water there because you will get drowned." It's actually sort of surprising that they're able to find Julie, because, and as they're doing this, the hooligans have managed to track them down a bit from across the river, and are just like, "Yeah, she bit one of our guys. She bit Mogo, and Mogo is not feeling well. He is slowly turning at this point." So they're gonna go find Julie and Kurt and go beat them up. Riverman offers them shelter because he asks, "Hey, did you start it?" And he's just like, "No." Or did you shoot him? Or like whatever. And he's just like, "No." So Riverman offers them help and lets them room in his makeshift home in the sewers. So yeah, in the meantime, the military has been trying to catch up on them. They've taken care of the a zombified Ping who has killed one of the police officers at this point. The military seems to be handling it all right. At this point, Colonel Sinclair shows up and she says, I talked to Washington. I'm now in charge of this. I want to do like a just purge of any contaminated people we see." Colonel Reynolds is just like, "No, I'm going ahead to go save my son," and doesn't care what Colonel Sinclair says. So yeah, at this point we're entering the final act of the movie. So by the hooligans managed to find the sewers where they were. By the time the hooligans end up catching up to Julie and Kurt and Riverman, the military has shown up at the entrance of the sewers. At this point, and there's a bit in meantime, Julie has been struggling with eating people's brain, like wanting to eat people and not wanting to eat Kurt, and she has discovered that you like poking herself with stuff causes her to like not be hungry as much, which leads her to start doing a bunch of self harm to the point where she ends up stabbing a shard of metal through her hand so that she can, I guess, have sex with Kurt again. And then Kurt and Riverman end up watching the door a little bit later, and they don't see her for a little bit, and she ends up like doing a lot of stuff to herself to like put away to like push back against the hunger for brains. So that's why she looks like the way she does on the poster. Those are like nails and stuff that she's like pushed into her skin to like try to fight the cravings. Whether this is actually effective is sort of dubious, but because as we see in a minute here, the hooligans and Riverman and Kurt end up getting into a fight. Eventually, they hold them off for a little bit, but eventually they end up having Riverman pressed against the wall, and Kurt ends up with a gun to his head. At this point, Julie comes out of the area where she was staying, and like the main character, like Santos, is just like, "Oh yeah, this is something. Maybe if you're willing to do something for me, I won't kill your boyfriend." And he just sort of like, despite the fact that she has not given a facial expression that implies that this is a thing she is going along with, she is just staring blankly at them through this. He sort of follows her into the back room where she was sleeping, and Julie ends up getting getting one over on Santos, and she comes back out, and she is holding not Santos's severed head, but his head's been sort of like loosened from his body, like pulled out a little bit, so there's some exposed spine. And when this guy is eventually zombified, the zombie will walk around with like an extended head, which is kind of neat looking. So she ends up overpowering the remaining two hooligans, and at this point, Mogo ends up becoming a full-on zombie. Riverman, Julie, and Kurt end up running away. Riverman keeps telling Kurt to leave Julie behind, but he's not willing to because of his mommy issues. So they end up going ahead. Eventually, they try boarding up a door, but somebody's used all the nails. So they try to board the door. This does not prove super effective. Kurt says he'll hold them off while Riverman and Julie escape. When eventually Kurt has to go leave, he ends up finding that Julie has killed Riverman because she has lost control at this point. At this point, Julie gets up and is looking at, not immediately attacking him, but Kurt is just sort of flabbergasted and is not able to move. At this point, the army shows up. They deal with the hooligan zombies. They have to beg for Kurt to get out of the way, and Kurt eventually relents, sort of completing his character arc where he's able to give up on his dead girlfriend and accept that she's moved on. Which, yeah, this is a character arc, I should point out. I'm kind of impressed with. I think it's kind of interesting, and it's sad, right? I don't know that he's really becoming better at the end of it, but it's genuinely sort of heart-wrenching. I kind of like that. So Julie ends up getting shot. They all go back to the military base, and they end up getting debriefed. Yeah, everything's still going on. We see a clip. We see a little clip of Sinclair bolting Riverman into a exoskeleton. Which the big flaw with this, the exoskeleton, to point out, isn't a strength enhancing thing. Really, it's mostly to keep the zombie sturdy, and also you can turn a big switch on it to disable it and keep all the arms shut close, which is difficult because it's a really it looks like a really tough switch. They struggle pulling it a lot of the time. Kurt ends up wandering off after some arguments between Peck and with Colonel Peck. They shouldn't be letting Kurt wander around at this point, but he does, and he ends up discovering that the military is keeping all the zombies alive to use as weapons, and they're being trapped in cage, and he ends up reacting poorly to this, mostly because I think on some level this is an amoral military experiment. We've also had a speech at this point from Colonel Reynolds where he's just yeah, I've clearly been overlooking some things. I think I've just been burying myself in my work because I was sad about my wife dying. So yeah, we're going to take a few weeks off.
I thought there was
go ahead.
I thought there was going to be a little bit more of a character development arc where fucking what's his face is comes to realization that his whole entire motivation was to get his wife back, but it ended up not doing any of that.
Yeah, it's more of a, oh yeah, I was just buried in my work and I wasn't considering the implications of what I was doing. And John and Colonel Reynolds is just oh yeah, I don't want to. I think I'm going to take a few weeks off before we go to Oklahoma City and sort of decompress and everything. But yeah, that's on Colonel Reynolds' ends. He's just sort of been yeah, I've been ignoring the problems with this, and yeah, clearly I need to take some time to myself. Burying my work, my self in my work has clearly not been healthy. But Kurt, in the meantime, has discovered the zombies in the cage, notably Julie, and he doesn't like that this is happening. I think, I don't know if he would have reacted good to finding out that Julie was going to be put down, but making her into a bioweapon isn't a better thing. Using her as using her corpse as a weapon isn't something that he finds particularly respectful. So he starts reacting and trying to open up the cage. He ends up getting into a fight, and one of the doctors who's wandering around here, he ends up getting bit. And also Riverman gets loose. So there ends up being a whole prison break thing. Eventually the entire building has to get basically it's all going to be incinerated. Yeah, basically what they should have been doing in the first time. Colonel Sinclair is killed by Riverman. During this struggle, we don't see it happen, but Kurt gets bit, probably by Julie. So when John tries to make, when Colonel Reynolds tries to make one final rescue of his son, Kurt has to stay behind. And Kurt makes a remark that, like, when like Julie asks what's going to happen to us, Kurt says they're going to go where they belong, and they're all killed. Which, yeah, I don't like the statement. I don't know how I feel about Kurt saying we're going where we belong, and then a bunch of fire happens in the background.
Yeah.
It is, I'll give it this, it is mopey and sad. Which is, I'm here for it, but it is what it is. It is mopey and sad. This is actually one of kind of a ending I kind of liked all this. Something about this all does it for me. It's not just like like a genuinely tragic ending. I will point one of the reviews that like Wikipedia references is just one by James Lauder of White Wolf and Phobia. He just says, "Oh, this uninspired ending offers sequel hooks galore," and I gotta just be like, "What fucking movie are you watching?" Like, I don't see where the sequel bait is.
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah, what's sequel bait?
Yeah. I mean, I guess arguably you could say that maybe the zombies escaped.
Maybe.
And now they have to clean up a lot of this shit. But, like, yeah, it's like the closest thing you could get to, like, a quote-unquote sequel of the situation. But
yeah, no, he did review that movie. But, yeah, it's just, I don't get it. It's just, yeah, I don't see how people really don't like this movie. I don't know. Some of that I get. I wonder if some of it's just because it's so, like, a lot of the scenes are like incredibly gross. I don't know. I find it really dopey, sure, but I think I'm on board with it. Looking up other films this guy has reviewed. No, I can't get into the idea that like this film's bad. Is it a perfect film? No, but I think it's like consistent. It has a character arc that's built within, like, it's not something I'm pulling out of my ass. It's like an actual character arc that's supported by the script. Like, you got like motivations, character motivations. You almost forget that like it's got stakes, and it's like a genuinely sort of tragic ending. I kind of like, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I'm kind of in a really weird position in this film because I don't think I've seen a whole bunch of the other Return of the Living Dead films. Like, I don't have the like full picture. I think I've done.
You've watched the second one with me, I think.
One before, second one.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, you did.
Nothing before that.
Yeah, you didn't see the original, but yeah. Mm-hmm. But I mean, this isn't really connected to those movies. It does fit into the continuity, but it's yeah.
Yeah, it's just a standalone thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it does scream 1990s.
Yeah. While also having a bit too much of the 80s for its own good, maybe. I will say this is the only zombie romance I've ever invested again. Because it's not falling in love with a zombie.
Yeah,
it's falling in love with a woman who is it's being in love with a woman who is turning into a zombie, which is the big difference here. Like, the fact that any of this has been true at all is kind of...
Like, I don't really have a lot to disagree with here. Like, as an individual zombie movie, I enjoyed it. As like a cult classic, I actually sat down and like enjoyed it. Basically, the only gripe I probably have with the film in general is just like the zombie continuity in on itself, and like the idea that love's gonna stop this girl from eventually becoming like a full-on zombie is kind of like the biggest turnoff for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just that, like, for me, like, I always kind of knew this was going to end badly. Like I knew that was happening. So I was kind of like immediately emotionally prepared for it, because there's no, like, none of these films has ever like had a like a way to come back from any of this, which is ultimately one of the things that makes zombies a pretty strong monster, is that you don't come back from it. It's yeah, it is a way to like grapple with and kind of, which is kind of yeah, it's kind of my favorite version of, like, my favorite fear about the zombie is just that it's a representation of death, where like it's not sugar coated or anything. It's like the person's gone, but there's still something there, and it's kind of horrifying in a way. Which kind of, yeah, and they keep saying, like, yeah, I keep reading reviews of this, and it's like, oh yeah, a lot of corny dialogue. I don't know if I go that far. Like 80s dialogue. I don't know if I call it corny.
And normally I'd be like, yeah, they've killed their fair share of minorities in this one. Like 95% of the characters that die in this is a minority, but also I think they killed off a couple of white doctors. So, I mean, technically that's a minority, but
yeah, most of the white guys that die in this are not named characters, which is different. All the
extras,
yeah, like all the minorities that die are named characters. I'll give them that movie. Like, everyone in this movie has a name. No one's like Hispanic thug number 2, which is something you can absolutely which is absolutely the sort of thing you'd expect from a movie like this. But like, no, these have names. Their names: Santos Morales, Mogo Entevaz, Alicia Kitsing, Felipe Hernandez. Ping, that's not a last name, but it's a name. Riverman's like a nickname, but it is a name. But yeah, and that's kind of a nice thing too. Like, there's no like unnamed, like, there's a couple unnamed people, but it's usually soldiers that happen. Like, there's police officers that get bitten or whatever. But for like, this is the scale of like named characters that die to unnamed characters that die is like very positive, which I think is kind of a strength to the film. You do get time, like even the extras, you do get like several, usually like a minute, at least a minute or two of screen time for every character that gets turned into a zombie. And this movie does not do jump scares. I'll say that too. Everything is like happening on screen. It's all suspense based. You know where the threat is, and you're just waiting for it to come into the building. And it's not like no one's appearing out of nowhere in this film, which is kind of like refreshing, honestly. I don't know. What do you give the movie, Cody?
Probably like a hard 7. I think I would have liked to have seen more character development between the father and the son. Ultimately, between like, I started this like with the intention of bringing my wife back, and it never came to fruition for whatever reason, type ordeal. But like, that's a lot to ask for. I don't like the fact that it's listed as a horror romance, personally.
Yeah.
Tragedy. Could have done with a lot less of that, but
I think this is one of those things where like people need to let the film be what it is. And for some, and like to an extent, like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff regarding like Julie that could absolutely come across as like distasteful. And I absolutely do not begrudge anyone that's just like, oh yeah, this was really gross, I don't like this. Because yeah, that's entirely fair. Like, if someone wants to put that, if someone wants to put that, like, that premise like front and center and say like, oh yeah, this is why I hate the movie, this is like, and like make it like a really lengthy feminist critique of this movie, or like, oh yeah, this is actually really sexist, I think that's perfectly valid, honestly. If I don't have the argument on hand, but like, I could see how that happens, and I wouldn't spend a lot of time arguing with it. But yeah, I can see that, like, honestly, the way they like that is something that absolutely I cannot see getting like what happens to her is not something that could be possibly put into like a theatrical release. At least this is not a wide one, which ultimately costs us more money than it costs this movie. Like it's not being made like cheap enough to be like a reliable direct to DVD thing. Yeah, I'm an 8. It's maybe a low 8, but I'm an 8.
Yeah.
If I get like a really good detraction of this film, I'd probably go with it. It's like what I was saying with like White Zombie a couple months ago. We're just like, yeah, I like the film, but there's absolutely like some valid critiques to this movie that can be made, and I'm not going to argue with those critiques because a lot of those are correct. Except I'm maybe a little bit more I maybe stick up for this film a little bit more, but just because I think there's something Lovecraftian about this, and and like the director is experienced a Reanimator, which is a Lovecraftian thing, and is also like involved with like Life Force, which is also a Lovecraftian thing. So there's a lot of that in there. It's kind of got if not like Lovecraftian themes, like Lovecraftian feel. But yeah, I don't know what we're doing next. I will think about that while I'm on.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I will think about that while I'm on vacation. Like, comment, subscribe. You can buy my book, The Pennsylvanian, at like most of the major online retailers. Follow me at Lord Brokenshire on Bluesky. You got anything to promote?
No, not overly.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you next time, or next, I guess, April, when I do the the April Fool's thing. But in the meantime, we'll do something in between that.
Thing that will rather happen or not happen.
Yeah, we'll figure something out here sometime in the month. Anyway, goodbye. Yep. Happy Halloween. See you next year. Ending the recording.